G'day friends and welcome once more to Aussie Moto and Outdoors. Thank you so much for joining me. It's a very special episode today as we dive into a comprehensive long-term review of the 2022 Yamaha YZF-R3. I've had this bike for 6 months and I've put 10,000 Ks on it. Well, it's almost 10,000 Ks. I think she's at like 9,880 Ks and I reckon that's close enough. So no messing around, let's get right into it. Firstly, right off the bat, am I bored with the R3 yet? And the short answer is heck no. It's still fast enough and fun enough to me to want to keep riding it. Yes, it could be a little quicker in acceleration, but this bike can still outperform me on a lot of roads and twisties where I find myself limited by how fast I want to go rather than what the bike is capable of doing. Now this review of course is still positive, but I want to be brutally honest. I want to put no BS in here. So when I did the initial review, I was just so happy at having a bike and riding it, I overlooked some things that needed attention for prospective buyers. Like I've always said though, as a newbie, you need to just get a bike, start riding, and this R3 is one of, if not the best things for doing exactly that safely. So let's start this review at the same place I started the last one, with the mirrors. Now you can see here that I can see behind me all right. Sometimes I have to lean over or move my arms a bit to get a decent view, but I would still call this an acceptable pair of mirrors. I have since ridden other bikes with really good mirrors that show a much bigger view that you just look at, no need for moving yourself around. So although perfectly fine, these aren't the best mirrors on the market. Remember though, on a sport bike there's a lot of things that weren't designed for comfort. This bike also has to look good. Next we check out the dash here. Now I didn't cover this at all in the previous review, but I should have because this dash is awesome. You always have a clear view of everything you need. It's a great size, it's never affected by glare, it's not confusing, easy to use, it's intuitive and practical, and I reckon it looks pretty bloody good too. Alright, let's do a rapid fire rundown of the performance, the clutch and the gears. The clutch is awesome. While not adjustable, it's hard enough to feel like there's something there, but soft enough that it's not going to give you a sore or cramped hand after extended riding stints. The gears are smooth, you barely even need the clutch a lot of the time. It doesn't have a slipper or an assist, but going up, like I said, you don't need the clutch a lot of the time, and even coming back down, if you rev match a bit, you can come down the gears without using the clutch. As I've stated again and again, this bike performs beautifully. She'll do 0 to 60 in about 5 seconds, which is plenty fast enough for a newbie or a commuter. She handles well on the twisties, as you can see here, this is a wet road. She's got plenty of torque for overtaking and handling the uphills, all the while getting 2.9 litres per 100 Ks, which is absolutely phenomenal. I can get about 400 Ks to a tank if I'm riding conservatively, and not many bikes can claim to do that. Alright, how about the brakes? The brakes are okay. Well actually they're pretty bloody good, decent. Should they be a little better? Maybe, and plenty of people say they should. I don't think it's crucial though. The more you get used to them, the less you think they should be better. I'm not an ultra fast rider, so I find them more than adequate. They stop when I need the bike to stop. The ABS works very well both front and rear, and you're never left thinking you're going to overshoot things due to sponginess or non-responsive controls, so it's a thumbs up there from me. Moving on to suspension, I think it is pretty much perfect. To be honest, I can't remember if there's any adjustability in this suspension on this bike, and I really don't care. I've never found myself wishing it was softer or harder. I sit on the bike and it's bloody comfy. And I ride up to 400 kilometers at a time, and I never find myself wondering about the adjustability. So I have to say my lack of awareness of that must indicate that it's pretty bloody good. How about the seat and the ergos? You got to realise this is such a subjective part of bike ownership, so never let someone else's comfort or seating position be the only reason you do or don't buy a particular motorcycle. For context, I'm 6'1", I've got quite long arms. I weigh about 70 kilos or 155 pounds, and I find the ergos of this bike nearing on perfection. I can sit upright if I want to stretch, or I can go into a full tuck without having to slide too far back on the seat. I don't worry about running out of seat if I do slide back. The clip-ons, they're at a great height to allow both being upright and a full tuck as well. The rear set is at a really good height for both relative comfort and allowing a half-decent lean angle without scrapage. The seat is soft enough to allow comfort cushioning, but hard enough that you're not bouncing around on it. For my weight and size, this bike is really truly awesome. Now, after several hours of riding continuously, I do want to have quick breaks here and there. Just stand up, stretch the legs, give the butt a rest, but you're going to get that on any bike. I still plan to do some really long range trips on this bike. The 10,000 Ks I've done so far have really cemented that idea and let me determine that it's not only entirely possible, but it's not going to be a horribly uncomfortable chore doing so either. This right here is one of my favourite things about owning a motorcycle. Just going on a several 100-kilometre trek with friends, pulling up at a random servo, having a coffee and a homemade meat pie. Absolutely awesome. Just as we'd decided it was time to head home, we're coming back through Mount Malloy. The road's shut, it's going to be shut for several hours, so we had to backtrack a little while and then take a detour of 150, 200 kilometres, taking us back down to the coast, down through Cairns and back up the other way. Absolutely not an issue. We were all just slightly pleasantly delighted that we had to ride all this extra distance and cover another couple of sets of twisties. We did run into a bit of a storm, got rained on for a little bit, and so just on that note, I'll give a little plug to the standard tyres they put on these R3s. I haven't had any issues whatsoever with the wet weather. The tyres feel like they're sticking to the road. Again, I don't ride blisteringly fast, so maybe if you're pushing it, you might want a more competitive tyre on there. But I find the standard ones absolutely brilliant. No complaints whatsoever. When I quite often say that I don't ride terribly fast, I don't ride terribly slow either. So it's not that this bike performs well for nufties, it performs well for everybody. Your very experienced high-end fast racing riders, well, they might want a slightly faster bike. But if you're relatively new, or you're returning to the sport, or you just want something that's going to be easy, cheap, good on fuel, it's really hard to beat the YZF-R3. As I've said several times before in other videos, look, if you're teetering on the edge of buying a bike, you just need to pick something and get on it, get out there, get riding. You're never going to know what is the perfect bike for you on your first bike. You just need to get one and start riding, get some experience under the belt, find out what it is you like about any particular bike. Whether it's a sport bike, a cruiser, an ADV, anything, just get a bike, get riding. That just about wraps up my review for today. I'm going to thank you once again, as always, for watching. It's a pleasure having you along with me. Here's to another 10,000 Ks on the R3. We're still planning on doing a giveaway with it. It turns out the logistics of doing so it's a lot harder than I initially thought. Now, if I wasn't trying to build and grow a YouTube channel, I think I'd be content to own the R3 for the next, 5 or 10 years. But in the interest of growing the channel, getting more experience, getting on different bikes, the giveaway is going to go ahead. It may take a little longer than I'd hoped, but is definitely going ahead. Owning a motorbike's just like owning a dog. You never regret it. Just get one. So feel free to comment if you disagree on anything I've said about the R3. If you think there's a better value for money bike, I want to hear about it. If you've had a bad experience with the R3, let me know that as well. Perhaps my opinion is biased because I own this bike and I love it. But only talking about it will we be able to share these ideas with the motorcycling community. Put other riders on the right path to getting the right bike for them. Well, thank you so much once again. Everybody take care, stay upright, put your phones down, get outside.